All right, let's take a road trip together. But this isn't a place you can just plug into your GPS today. Nope, we're actually traveling back in time. We're headed to a classic American suburb in the 70s and 80s, and our guide is someone who remembers it all, every little detail of his hometown, Bowie, Maryland.
So before we hit the gas, just think about this for a sec. For some of you, this whole era is a real memory. For others, it's probably just a scene out of a movie, right? But what did it actually feel like to live there? What was life like before the internet, before these giant mega malls? Back when your local hangout spot was like the center of your entire universe?
Okay, so let's do it. Buckle up. We are heading to Bowie, Maryland, and we're seeing it all through the eyes of author Carlo DeSalvo. And trust me, this isn't just some boring history lesson. It's a really personal tour, where every single strip mall, every diner, it all holds a piece of a story.
So, where do we start? Well, where else? The neighborhood. We're pulling into a place called Heather Hills, and it's your classic suburb. The kind of place where, if you were a kid, your entire world could basically fit inside the local park.
I mean, just look at how simple things were. Fun wasn't this big, complicated thing. It was saving your stale bread to go feed the ducks at Allen Pond Park. Or, watching the 4th of July fireworks at the amphitheater. Or trying your best not to wipe out at the Bowie Ice Arena. These places, like Fox Hill Park, they weren't just parks. Come on. For a kid growing up in Bowie, this was it. This was the center of the universe.
All right, we're leaving the parts behind now, and we're getting back on the road. We're cruising down US Route 301. You gotta understand, this was a main artery for life in Bowie. And for our author, whose parents were actually in the restaurant business, this road, man, it was like a treasure map of amazing food.
And here we are, our first stop. It's a place that is a true local legend, Rip's Country Inn. It's right there at the intersection of Route 301 and 197. This spot was already a total classic by the time the 70s rolled around.
Okay, get this. This place opened way back in 1952, and it's still there today. It was the classic roadside hub, It had a bar, a restaurant, a deli, even a motel, all in one. And Rip's was just the absolute definition of comfort food. We're talking hot turkey sandwiches, legendary crab cakes, and a bread pudding that our author's mom absolutely loved.
It's funny how a simple meal can just get burned into your brain as a core memory. For our author, Rip's was the place he first tried, get this, potato skins. Yeah, can you imagine that? A food that is so ridiculously common today was for him a total revelation. It's just a perfect example of how our tastes and our memories get cooked up in these little local spots.
Okay, let's head a little further down Route 301, because there was another icon from that time, and this place offered a completely different kind of dining experience. It was called the Red Lion Inn.
Now, for anyone who's maybe too young to remember this, you have to understand, cafeteria-style dining was a huge deal back then. You'd grab a tray, right, and you'd slide it along this metal railing, past this long counter of food, and you just point at what you wanted. I'll have some of that roast beef, a scoop of mac and cheese, and a slice of that pie. It was this amazing visual feast, and it gave you, the customer, total control over your meal. And the Red Lion Inn, it was a prime example of this.
Look, this was never about gourmet, 5-star food. It was all about the simple joy of getting to choose. And if you're a little kid, getting to pick your own dessert was everything. The author remembers the pudding. It was probably just made from some instant mix, But with a big old dollop of Cool Whip on top, to him, it was magical. A total core memory.
Okay, so we're leaving Route 301 now. We're turning onto the main commercial drag of the town. This is Route 450, also known as Annapolis Road. And let me tell you, this was the absolute commercial heart of Bowie. And right here, you had these two titans of Bowie retail, just kind of staring each other down from opposite sides of the road. On one side, you had the Free State Mall with its Ponderosa Steakhouse, and then on the other, you had the Bel Air Shopping Center, home to a Bob's Big Boy. Each one had its own little ecosystem of stores and restaurants that really defined what it was like to go shopping back then. And sitting right there in the Bel Air parking lot was a true giant of 70s fast food, Roy Rogers. Man, it's hard to explain just how popular these places were. Back then, in Maryland, you'd see almost as many Roy Rogers as you saw McDonald's. They were famous for their roast beef sandwiches, which, by the way, our author swears were way better than Arby's, and for this absolutely incredible hot fudge brownie sundae.
But Annapolis Road was way more than just those two big shopping centers. Let's keep driving.
So as we keep cruising down the road, you start to see the real everyday fabric of the community. You know, these little standalone buildings. There's the family pediatrician, Dr. Venegas. Oh, and look at that, a TV repair shop. A total relic, right, from a time before we just threw our tech away? These were the essential, normal places that made up daily life. And then, just up ahead, tucked in between all these businesses, we see the movie theater. And let's just say its size might surprise you. Yep. 2. A grand total of 2 screens. I mean, forget about your 20-screen megaplexes of today. This was just a simple, little cube-shaped building, and it gave you exactly 2 choices for your Friday night movie. That's it. 2. All right, as we keep going, we pass the pillars of pretty much any American town, right? You've got the public library, that quiet hub of knowledge, and then there's Bowie Senior High School, the absolute center of teenage life, and of course, Friday night football.
And that brings us up to this key intersection. On one side, you've got the building for the local paper, the Bowie Blade News, and right across from it, the only McDonald's in the entire town. And notice anything missing? There's no drive-through. No way. You actually had to park your car and go inside. It's such a small detail, but it says so much about a different, less hurried pace of life.
Okay, for our final stop on this trip, we're making one last turn, onto Route 197. In this part of the journey, it's a little different. It's more personal. This is where the public history of a town really crosses paths with one family's very private story.
And here we are, Bowie Plaza. Now, to most people, this was probably just another strip shopping center. It had the best Chinese food in town, the Golden Pavilion. But for our author, this place was everything. Because this plaza, this was the home of Rose's Pizzeria. It was the very first restaurant his parents ever co-owned. So this whole trip we've been on, touring all these public spaces, has really been leading us right here to this one deeply personal landmark.
And that kind of brings us to a final thought, doesn't it? So often, it's the most ordinary places, a local diner, some random strip mall, a neighborhood park, that hold our most powerful memories. So it makes you wonder, what are the quiet, unassuming landmarks on your personal map? What are the places that made you, well, you?